Okay, we're gonna get started. So thank you to everybody for coming to this amazing event. Huge shout out to Product Buds and Stephen from Exponent for working with us to make this happen. So we'll quickly introduce how the event's gonna work, a little bit about our organizations, and then we'll get started with the workshop. So to kick it off, the way that the event will work is that we'll start with a round of intros, and then the workshop should last a little bit over an hour. And at the end of the workshop, we'll have the ability to answer questions from the audience. So the workshop is also going to be interactive. But if you have any questions throughout the event, so Henrika just sent a Slido link in the Zoom chat. So you can go to that link and insert any questions that you have, and they'll be answered near the end of the event. Awesome. So to kick it off, my name is Akshaya, and I am part of Remote Students, which is an online community for college students to engage with each other on professional development topics. So some of the examples of stuff that Remote Students does are we've run office hours with venture capitalists, exclusive small group talks with top tier entrepreneurs and product managers. We also run a weekly newsletter of remote jobs and internships that are open to college students. So if anyone's still looking for an internship for the summer, it's still not too late. And in addition, Remote Students also cares a lot about mentorship as well as networking with other college students. So those are some of the few things that we do. And if you're interested in joining our exclusive community for college students, we'll send a link to everybody after the event with some resources and links on how to join the event. So thank you so much to everybody for being here. We really appreciate you coming. We had a ton of amazing people who wanted to join. So thank you so much. And we'll also send a recording of the event afterwards. So don't worry if you need to leave early or if you missed something, we're gonna have a recording sent out to everybody as well. Cool. Grace, you can kick it off now.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Akshaya and Andrew and Stephen, for having us on this amazing event. There are 252 of you on this call, and kudos to every single one of you for taking the proactive steps to become a great future product manager. I'm so excited to see you all here. So hello, everyone. My name is Grace, and I'm currently a product manager intern at Salesforce and a marketing major at Northeastern University in Boston. While I love my day job at Salesforce, Product Buds has been my passion project that myself and my amazing team have been channeling a lot of our energy into, resulting in a community of nearly 900 aspiring and current PMs from around the world in less than 1 month. Product Buds is really on the mission to sprout, grow, and flourish the next generation of product managers through an engaging PM book club, PM side projects, and mock interviews. So if you want to join us, simply email us at productbuds@gmail.com and we'll add you in. Once again, thank you all so much for tuning into this call, and we're really looking forward to what you all will learn from this event. And also, pro tip, after this event, post on LinkedIn with what you learned from this event and tag everyone that is hosting this event, including Stephen, and we will engage with your content and you'll surely boost your LinkedIn personal brand from it. So that's something that you could do as well.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Grace. It's my pleasure to introduce Stephen. Stephen is an ex-Google product manager and CEO of Exponent, a platform that offers tech interview, prep courses, and coaching. He's conducted thousands of interview prep sessions as a product management thought leader who has presented at places like Google, WeWork, Duke, Yale, and many more. Stephen graduated from Princeton University and the Stanford Graduate School of Business. He's also the founder of the world's largest mental health hackathon. Stephen, take it away.
Thanks for the intro, and thanks everyone for being here. I'm super excited to see so many people keep trickling into this chat. All right, well, this talk, as I mentioned, is going to be interactive. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and get it set up. Just 1 second. All right. Okay, so hopefully everyone can see me and see what's in here. Can everyone just, before I jump into it, like give a chat, just say hi or something so I can make sure I can see the chat feature? Okay, I might not be able to actually see it in this. Oh, let me see if I can pull it up. Okay. There we go. Okay, got it up. Hey, so many messages, so many people saying hi. Awesome. All right. Well, we're going to use a lot of the chat function in this talk, so please use it liberally to interact with me, and I may call on you. We'll try out the raise hand feature, etc. So who knows what a Google Doodle is? So hopefully you know what they are, but can anyone guess what these Google Doodles are representing or what they're celebrating? Let's start with the top left one. Any ideas what that is? You can chat away. Okay, we got connecting with the populace, airplanes, breaking sound barrier is a little closer, something with sound, maybe a person related to that. It's an effect. Yep, Julia, you got it. It's the Doppler effect. And so this is celebrating William Doppler and his birthday. Anyone know the top right one? Painting. Holy. Oh, we got it immediately. Arpit got it. And Tejas got it. Holi, the Indian festival of colors, is what it's celebrating. How about the bottom left one? Oh yeah, Eugen got it. It's kimchi. Apparently, Kimchi Day is a real day, and it's celebrated. And so this Google Doodle represents Kimchi Day. Nice job on getting it. And then in the bottom right, this is the hardest one. Oh wow, Joseph, did you skip ahead or you already got it? Yeah, it's Father's Day. It's a Father's Day doodle to celebrate. It's not Cactus Day, as many people often think, but it's a Father's Day doodle with a father and his young daughter Cactus. Awesome. Okay, so Google Doodles are great. They make us feel good. But can anyone, let's say we're on the Google Doodles team and we're trying to figure out how to pick the Google Doodles for the next year. Like how we're going to pick which ones to run. Can anyone tell me any signals or metrics that we can use that would help indicate whether or not a Google Doodle was effective or not effective? Okay. How many people click on it? Clicks. So I'm hearing click-through rate. So Grace, would you mind unmuting and like let's try this out and see how it works. Tell me why is click-through rate important?
Oh yes, so click-through rate is important, at least from the marketing perspective, because if you are trying to generate revenue through certain ads, through your platform, then the more clicks that you have, the more potential that you can have like leads come into your funnel and generate more sales of your product, for example. That's on a very high level, but also curious to hear others' thoughts as well.
Cool. So yeah, CTR, the reason like immediately people said clicks, clicks, clicks. Why that might be bad is we don't have a sense of like how like per impression that was. So like, given that people are seeing it, how likely are they to click on it is a better metric, because perhaps a ton of people went to the Google homepage one day and they got more clicks, but it was actually a lower CTR, a lower click-through rate. So, you know, I'm seeing some other interesting ideas. So Benjamin, maybe can you tell me a little bit more about the searches related to the topic and why that might be a good metric? Benjamin might be shy. Anyone else maybe? Or let's see. Kriti, maybe? Could you yeah, searching about the doodle sounds like the same point. Oh, okay, I think the permissions might not let unmuting. Okay, so we'll stick to the chat for now, and we can see if we want to unmute it or if we can figure that out later. So I'm hearing click-through rate. That's good. Why is click-through rate a problem? Like why is click-through rate not the most effective metric? Or why would I be concerned? Like let's say we just optimize for click-through rate. Mistakenly clicking, it could be unintentional. But let's imagine we're the product team and we are prioritizing click-through rate, right? So like, you know, we're working on the Google Doodles. We want to get click-through rate. That's our key big metric. Well, what might happen is that, yeah, so a lot of things, like people might not understand what the Google Doodle is. There might be controversies over the Doodle with many people clicking them, but like they might not be happy about it. They might be like, what is this thing? I don't want it on my page. And you know, a lot of people are very revenue focused. But what I would say is like, if you prioritize click-through rate, what would happen is that every Doodle would have a big pulsing play button on the top of the Doodle that says like, hey, click me, click me, click me. And that would certainly include the CTR of the page, but that might not be an effective way to actually get a better experience to our users. And so that's why I'm interested in some of these other ideas like Akriti and Benjamin are suggesting around maybe the search volume might tell us more information about the Doodle, like if people are searching more for that particular Doodle. However, that might not apply to all the Doodles, right? So it might actually, like, there might actually be aberrant effects there as well, right? And so like, you know, maybe Father's Day Doodle, already people are searching for it. It's not like this Doodle needs to get people to search more for it. That might not be the goal. So, you know, I think the learning here, or the point here, is that there's a lot of nuance with these metrics, and you can't stick to just one metric. You can pick a lot of different ways to measure this, and that will get you close to understanding what the actual impact is of the product and of the experience. But also thinking about like what Google Doodles are for are more of a brand experience, or more of like a positive feeling experience. And some of the Doodles have different goals than other Doodles. Like a holy Doodle might have a very different effect than a Doppler effect in the Google search. And so thinking about that is really important. I love the suggestions and, you know, like, you know, number of searches on that Doodle, a learn more button, having like a better sense of maybe as an aggregate. Let's talk about a different bug, and we'll try unmuting again after this one. So I discovered this a while ago, and I don't know if it's still live, but if you're in Instagram, there's a setting that helps you set your security settings that allows to moderate comments that might be inappropriate. And so you can do it from Instagram desktop, which I know not many of us use, but it still exists. And you can also do it from Instagram on your app, on your phone. However, I discovered a critical issue. The setting does not synchronize. So I could set it in my desktop to be one way, and I could set it in my phone to be a different way, or on the app experience, and they don't necessarily map to each other. So if I turn it on in the desktop, it won't turn on in the mobile experience. So can anyone tell me maybe, like, first of all, is this a problem? Like, why would this be a problem at all? So Alex Chen, yeah, it's unexpected behavior. Alex, can you try maybe unmuting again and see, or, you know, the host might be able to unmute you and explain what is unexpected about that?
Well, if someone decided to hide inappropriate comments in the first place, it might be odd to them when they go onto either the device or their desktop and then see that the comments are not hidden, and they might then expect that the feature is just not working.
Got it. Well, Alex, what about the use case where, let's say I'm a parent and I don't want my kid on my phone going through anything like that, but I don't mind it on my desktop. Do you think that that's a reasonable use case, or like, how would you factor that into thinking about it?
If that's the case, it should probably be more transparent that it's not being synchronized, although it would be a good use case, yeah.
Awesome, that's a great answer. Yeah, like that could be a great use case, but it seems like something is clearly broken here. Something is not right here. And then I guess my second question is like, is this a priority? Like, should our team really worry about this? Like, we got a lot of things to do. We got to launch a bunch of different things. TikTok is becoming too big of a competitor. We should be working on that, right? Like, should we even be fixing this? So I'm hearing a lot of yeses. Maybe can someone tell me, like, let's say Shipra, can you tell me why this is an important thing to fix?
Yeah, it's important. Hello, everyone. So it's important because this is the inconsistency. This is an easy fix that can make both the desktop and the mobile version compatible, and they will be in sync and will provide a more user-friendly UX to the users.
Yeah, that's all great points. I would say like the biggest thing that I would say in terms of prioritizing this feature is imagine the worst case scenario. Someone turns on the safe setting on their desktop and their child sees an inappropriate comment on their phone. and they had expected that to function correctly. Or, you can imagine a bunch of different scenarios, but that's a pretty high impact and negative experience for a user. And so it might be worth prioritizing this bug. It might be worth focusing on this. You could definitely do some analytics to see how often users are in each of these cases to actually make the call. But let's assume that there's enough users in that case that we should actually be a problem. But is it so easy? Like, what should we actually do? So, let's say we have users. We can use this framework, right? So native means the app, and web means like the desktop in this case. So if it's on, if we've turned it on, like I want safeness on, and we can just synchronize that setting. And if they're both off, we can also synchronize that setting, no problem. But what do we do when a user is off in one and on in the other? How do we convert it to the state where we can actually synchronize those two settings? Does anyone have any intuition on how we should actually do that? And let me know if it's unclear or confusing. So yeah, use a default. Okay, so Hassan, what do you mean by use a default? Can you tell me a little bit more?
So just to relate it in terms of like user experience, like just relate to every other setting that you have. So if you have, a certain setting on your desktop and you have one setting on your computer, I'll say on your phone, then turning it off on one, if you decide to synchronize it on the back end in one day, all those settings should function exactly the same. So like if say one setting was, on off on one setting was on off, once you click on or off or one, one should take precedence over the other.
Got
all
it.
The time. And if it's a phone, it should always be the phone. And if it's always the desktop app, then it should always be the desktop app.
Okay, so I'm hearing a relative sense of there should be some sort of priority or some sort of default
predictability.
Setting. Yeah, I hear that. I guess what I'm asking about is also like, imagine I am a user that had my web turned on and my app turned off. What should I like? And now our engineer is working on the feature. They're like, okay, I have a fix. I can make all the entries exactly match each other, but we need to decide what to do with those users because I can't make them be the same. Like how do I fix that? So what should I do?
So
does that make sense?
Yeah, but it's a really obscure setting. So like I don't think like normally I would like it to reach out to our clients and ask them like what they prefer. But since it's such an obscure setting and you don't want to actually get in the way of people actually using the app, at this point I think you should just do some research into it, like the data, just do some data analytics into like what people actually prefer.
Okay.
And just go by that.
Okay, that sounds great. Darsh, I also saw you had a comment about being on for all. I'd love to hear your opinion on that too.
Yeah, sure. So I meant that if you have the screening on any platform, let's say desktop or your phone, it should take precedence because it would be more beneficial for a user if they have turned it on any platform to do it on all the platforms because they probably did it on because they want to hide the offensive comments.
Yeah, so that approach makes sense to me, which is like, we should take the conservative approach. If someone has turned it on, but they should not be saying safe comments. And that works too. I love some of the other suggestions, Dr. T's suggestion of what platform is being used most by the user. Another suggestion that I think I saw was the setting that was changed last should be the one, because that was the one that had the most intent, like, oh, I want this to be that state. And we can play around with that. There's one piece missing to this product experience though. Let's say we switch it, we have some rule. Is there anything else we should do in regards to communicating this to our users? I kind of just gave it away, but how should we communicate it to our users? Yeah, so the last point, and everyone's kind of mentioning this, is like, let the user know. It doesn't have to be like, hey, would you like to do this? It can be, hey, we've changed things under the hood for you. We've synchronized your settings. Here's where you can change it if you need to change it. And that just communication is important to a user. All right, one more before we get into some of like who I am and all the other intro stuff. Google Home, I know some of you have this, maybe you prefer Echoes. I don't really have a big stake in the game other than I used to work on Google Home, so I guess I have a little bit of a stake in the game. Let's imagine that you're designing this feature, okay? So it's a simple feature. We just want to do, okay, Google, flip a coin. We would just want to create the response for that. Can anyone just give me just tell me what should happen after I do that? What should Google say? Okay, so Oliver says it should just say heads. Okay. Oh, okay, but Sun Jim says it should be Okay, name, it's heads. Some people are saying heads or tails. Agrita, a sound should play. Agrita, can you unmute and tell me what should the sound be? Maybe let's go for Abhishek with a coin sound. Yeah, what should the
Yeah,
sound be?
so my idea was the flip sound should be there, and at the end it says it's head or it's tail, like
Got
that.
it. So if I can role play with you really quickly. So I'll ask it to you and you can be Google.
Okay.
Okay, Google, flip a coin.
It should actually make a sound of
The
coin
sound.
flipping and coin getting on the ground, and then at the end it says it's head.
Okay, cool. But wait, do grounds exist in Google's world? Like, does it land on a table or should it just flip in the air maybe, right? Because
I think flipping in the air is a very good idea.
No, I'm just joking with you. I mean, it's an interesting question of a design problem of how you would actually design that sound and if there exists a table in that world. But the point that you're saying is great, which is, yeah, let's have a sound. That's like a really important one that a lot of people miss when they think about this. Like, there should be a sound.
Exactly.
There also should be, you know, like, in addition to a sound noise, I wonder, like, some of the other suggestions I really like, which is like, okay, blank, I'm going to flip a coin. I'm about to do this action. Letting the user know that they understood what is happening. Because what if you said like something else, like flip a toy, and they heard, the Google thing heard flip a coin, and then all of a sudden it's starting to just make a sound, a coin noise, and then say it's heads, and you're like, what is that about? And so especially with voice commands, you want to repeat and make sure that there's a lot of communication across. I want to just kind of move through this so that we get to some of the meat of the presentation, but there's a lot of great comments in here, and I hope people are watching the chat thread as well for some of these really good comments of like things. And LOL at Brandon, because his Google Home actually responded to this conversation, I guess. And hopefully it had a good response, Brandon. You can maybe chat what the response was. One thing I do want to call out that a lot of people are suggesting that's really good is, do you want to roll again or do you want to flip again? And sort of like engaging the user in playing more, because the intent, if you think about the intent of this experience, like the user wants to play or wants to, you know, more than just a coin flip, right? Like likely. And so you can have fun and kind of think about what that intent is and play with that with the user. All right, let's talk a little bit about product management, which is, I guess, what this talk is about. First off, a little bit about me. I used to work at Google. Here are some of the things that I used to work on. I used to help people waste time in their Google search by searching Solitaire, and you can play Solitaire or Pac-Man or a bunch of other fun features like that. I used to also work with the Google Assistant and Google Doodles team. I also used to work with the Wear OS team, which is formerly called Android Wear, the smartwatch team. I now am the CEO of Exponent. It's at tryexponent.com. We help people land their tech career by making the interview process more transparent, because we know how hard it is to get some of these interviews and to get through them, and we want to make it easier to get through that stuff. We also do career development, career coaching, and things like that. And thanks for the shout outs. So what is PMing? So some people think that this is what product management is like, and I'm unfortunately here to tell you that product management is not actually being a manager of people. It's managing a product. And some people like to describe it a little bit more like this. So think about it like, you know, the intersection of business, of tech, and of UX. Well, I like to think of it a little bit more like this. Where really, at the end of the day, you're at the intersection of a whole bunch of different things, and it depends totally on the product lifecycle. And so you can have someone who is in an early stage product working a lot with UX, working a lot with illustrators. You can have someone in a late stage product working a ton with PR and marketing. And if it's a B2B, B2C, there's a lot of different differences. But at the core end of the day, it's all about managing groups of people to help, managing a product with groups of people to help achieve a product launch or a product outcome. And at the end of the day, you're the voice of the user, and you're ensuring that a high quality, excellent product experience is getting shipped. And I don't want to spend too much time on this because I think a lot of people know what product management is, or you can look about it online in a bunch of different resources. What I want to focus this talk on is really the interview and how you can succeed in the interview, because I think that's really high leverage. 2 more slides just on Google and product management, things like that. This is kind of a day in the life of what a product manager does. So stand-ups are common meetings. You might be doing user testing. You might be working with your email and calendar a lot, and you'll hear product managers use the word sync often and all the time again. All they mean is just meeting. I don't know why they use the word sync, but it's a lingo that is used by product managers. And there's a whole, if you guys want this slide, there's a whole blog article where I go into what these actually would be. You can Google it. It's just Google product manager day in the life of, I think it just comes up. And before I get into this, like, I know product management is hot and it's, you know, cool and everyone wants to do it. But personally, well, the way I would think about it is product manager is not for everyone. And there are a lot of great reasons to not be a product manager. And there are a ton of great jobs in tech, like data science, product marketing management, software engineering, and et cetera. And so I would really think carefully if this is the role for you. If you like being an individual contributor, like if you like actually building things and creating the thing, that's not really a good role for a product manager. If you're not a planner, if you have trouble saying no, if you don't like communicating, these are all signs that you might want to think about a different role other than product management. And there's tons of other roles, and we can talk about that maybe in the Q&A. We even have courses for other roles. There's just a slide letting you know about some of the other roles that exist. Okay, let's get to it. Let's get to the interview. So there's 3 processes. There's the resume, there's the interview, and then there's the potential, like sometimes there's a take-home assignment or things like that. We're going to focus on the interview, but first let's talk a little bit about the resume. So what do people care about when they look at your resume? They're going to care about your technical experience in your computer science curriculum. It may not be required at the company you're interviewing with, but it's definitely something that will come up for you. And I'll have a slide after this to talk about, like, what do you mean if, like, technical, what if I'm not technical? How do I handle that? Product experience, if you have experience building and shipping products, it doesn't even have to be a software product. It could be a hardware product or other types of products or part of a class. Most colleges have classes where you do a project at the end of the curriculum. And I would recommend using that as a way to talk about it on your resume if you don't have other relevant experience. So we have software projects as well. So if you've built software, that's always good to include. Even if you haven't done something, build your personal website and add that. That's a great thing to add. Your leadership and general communication is also something they look for. At the end, I have some optional skills. This depends on if you have them. You should play them up to make your resume seem more appealing to a product management role. So let's say you were a data analyst. That's great. Like, add some of that stuff and tailor it in a way that showcases your product knowledge and product experience. So most common question, oh my gosh, I'm not technical. What am I supposed to do? Like, I don't know how to actually get into this field. I didn't major in CS or in mathematics or whatever it is. So here are my suggestions. These are meant to be tactical in nature. Learn about technology, read blogs like stratechery.com or just read through TechCrunch. Go to hackathons, try to participate in them, work with engineers, understand how to talk and work on engineering projects. Think about, like maybe what I would think about it is, like, think about it from the perspective of a recruiter, okay? So I'm a recruiter, and I'm trying to evaluate whether or not you are a good fit for this company. However, let's say that I have 2 candidates. One is a technical candidate, and one is a non-technical candidate. The main thing that I'm going to be concerned about is that I'm not sure that you're really invested in product management and really invested in the tech sphere. So how can you really showcase to me that you are very committed and invested in it? Some ways you can do that is blogging about it, going to hackathons, tailoring your resume, networking, joining groups like Product Buds and remote students and things like that that help you meet other students and connect to them, doing projects, things like that. Those are all help. And yes, like writing blogs on LinkedIn, things like that also will help too. But I would not want to constrain you to this list. Like, think creatively about how you can demonstrate that you are interested in tech and that you care about tech. Like, what if you're interviewing for a product role? Like, I want to hear why you're interested in it. What do you do in your free time? Do you make Arduino garage door openers, or do you love to, like, design silly apps and use them as pranks for people or something? Like, there are a lot of ways to showcase that. And then okay, so that's a little bit of the resume. I know there's a lot of questions. Can y'all try to add the questions to the Slido thing so that I can answer them all at the end, unless they're burning questions that are very relevant to the slide that I'm on, or I missed something, just so that we can keep it all to the end, because otherwise it's a little distracting for me. Thanks. So let's get into the interview. So we're going to cover different interview types and questions. I want to prioritize the ones that are most important, so I might skip some of these depending. But the first one that I want to do is an estimation question. These do still come up in PM interviews, and without Googling, so you got to be honest about this, I want you to tell me how you would go about solving this problem. I do not want to hear a specific answer. I just want to hear how you would go about solving this problem. And so take a few minutes, think about it, or a few seconds. And when you have an idea or a suggestion, you can chat a brief description of what that would look like how you would solve this problem. And we can talk about different approaches. Okay, so Agrita has one idea. It weighs near another building that I know. So maybe I can use that as a reference point. Ashmini says 300,000 tons, even though I asked to give the process and not the answer. So Ashmini, you wouldn't have passed that interview, I think. But I think, you know, I would be curious to hear how you got to that answer or how you thought about that, if I can put you on the spot.
Well, sorry that I misunderstood your question. I was just thinking about like the materials that were used, and like it is like the most prominent building in the city, so I thought it would be like steel or some type of high grade metal with a high density. So I just thought that it would be 300,000 tons.
Cool. That's that's a great way to think about it. So we have two approaches right now. So Agrita, your approach was, I know a reference building that's kind of similar. So let me it's maybe a little bit less or a little bit more. So let me just guess this thing. Ashwini, it sounds like yours okay, let me think about the materials involved. And, you know, there might be a number, if you went into it deeper, you might be like, okay, there's this many floors that I'd estimate, this much of a perimeter of the building, this is the height of the building that I'd estimate, and I'd estimate each of these things based on different criteria that I know. And I'm sort of breaking down the problem. So I'm taking the problem, which is a very hard problem, into, okay, I want to know the height, I want to know the length, the width, I want to know the materials, I want to know the density of those materials, and based on all this piece of information, I could actually calculate that answer. And I would say that that is generally the approach that works really well in estimation interviews, is breaking down the problem. And I'm seeing a lot of people kind of calculating the surface area, calculating these things. Typically, you're not actually allowed to Google, and you're not allowed to ask about other buildings' weights and things like that. What I like to do is, if you're stuck, you can estimate something based on the things that you know. So I know that I'm 6 feet tall. So I can use that to measure how tall the floors would be. So I'd be like, I think the floors are maybe 2 Stevens tall. So maybe each floor would be 12 feet. And then maybe I'll add a little bit of buffer to make it 15 feet. And then based on that, I'm gonna estimate okay, those 15 feet, maybe each floor is 1 foot or something, or however many feet. And then I would keep kind of cycling up depending on how many number of floors. And so again, the key to this answer, the key to a successful answer here is breaking down the problem. But it's also about asking good clarifying questions. And I didn't let you all do that in this interview, but some of the clarifying questions that I might ask and nuances that I might point out in this answer could be really effective. But before I share some of those, what are some, if anyone can chat, what are some nuances that you thought about this question? So there's the overall approach, but what are some maybe edge cases here of things like that? Yeah, so Jade, is it empty? Are there furniture in the building? Do floors have different room types? Do we include the weight of the foundation? Do we include maybe the tip top of the building? And you know, do we think about elevators? Do we think about windows? All those things. So they're all aspects of this problem that when you point them out in an interview, it makes you seem really smart. It shows that you're thinking about the problem, not just from a high level of oh, this is how I'd solve it, but also the nuances and what assumptions you're making and what things you're leaving out. And so these are just some tips to make your answer really stand out. So, you know, an overall approach is breaking down the problem, but then to really stand out, I would recommend having some of these little nuances in there and mentioning them and some of the trade-offs you made and how you decided the problem. There's a whole free lesson on this on Exponent too, so I don't want to spend too much time on it, on how to break down this problem. I think you should just Google estimation questions. It comes up first in Google or something, or PM interview estimation questions. Cool. So to be mindful of time, I'm gonna skip ahead and come back to this one. I want to do this one now. And so go ahead and read the prompt. I am now switching my role. Usually I have a hat or something that I can put on, but let's assume that I have a hat. I'm a different person. I'm now the data analyst for Facebook. And now you all, the 300 or so, or however many of you, are the PM. And we need to figure out how to diagnose this issue. And so I would love for you to ask me questions via the chat, and I can answer them to help you diagnose what the issue is. So Sanjim, the usage metrics that dropped were DAUs, so that the active user count has dropped. And how do I define usage? Usage is defined by a page view or of the app or of the web experience. So Akriti, you're asking me, is it a technical issue? Unfortunately, I'm actually a new hire. I'm a data analyst. I can only pull numbers for you, but if you want me to pull numbers, I can try to look those up. But I'm not sure. Like, is there a better question maybe you can ask?
What if I can ask you?
By the way, the chat is spinning. Yeah.
Yeah, just if I can ask a question here.
You can ask me, sorry.
Yeah, so I was just wanting to.
Did I miss it? Or Akriti, did you want to ask me?
Yeah, I just wanted to tell you that for me, my first question would be, I would want to know if there are any other external factors that has made the metrics drop, and then start analyzing, if not them, eradicating them, and then coming on to the other criteria, what other things can affect the metrics drop. Just.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, that's great. Unfortunately, I'm still a data analyst. Like, I don't actually know how to answer that question. I would love to answer that question, but I don't know if external factors have caused it or not. So if there's a way to learn about it in the data, maybe if you can chat it, just because I know there's a ton of stuff going on in the chat right now, maybe chat an idea of how you would go about asking me that question. I'm seeing a ton of questions, everyone, so let me just try to get through them, and I'll pause and we can come back in. So what time of the day? We're seeing a spike as of yesterday. Like, it seems like it wasn't happening before that. We're seeing that, okay, so a lot of people are asking about location. We're seeing that the drop has occurred only in the region of Brazil. So we're only seeing the drop in Brazilian users. So recent events, again, Jade, I don't know how to look up recent events, but I can Google for them. Does that help, like, answer the question? Like, how should I know that? What month is it? It's the current month, it's June. Did it drop on Messenger? Yes, we're seeing a decline on Messenger that's similar as well. I look at devices. When I look at the different devices, I'm not seeing a pattern with devices. It seems like the proportion of users by device is consistent with the drop. It's not helping me identify more information. Is there demographics? What demographics specifically? Like gender, I'm selecting for. Work, I'm selecting for. I'm not seeing any differences there. Certain age, I'm not seeing an age differential there as well. Ryan is asking me, why do I think this happened? I don't know. I just got to the team. I'm not sure, but I'm really good at looking at dashboard data, if that helps you. What is our historical growth in the Brazilian user market been like? It's been pretty good. Yeah. I don't know. It's been maybe like, let's say like 5% year over year or something like that. Or maybe that's not good, but it's been growing steadily. Which Facebook product feature is the usage rate drop apparent on? It's actually, I'm looking at Instagram, Facebook, and Messenger, and it's a problem across all of those. Trending events in Brazil, well, I mean, there's a COVID thing happening, so maybe that's related. I'm not sure. Can anyone help me figure out if that's the problem? Barutha, can you tell me why do you think it's a network issue?
I think it's a network issue because recently we saw something that happened with Leica Mobile and T-Mobile day before yesterday. Like, none of us were able to do calls anywhere across US. There was a big network outage in the entire US. So people who rely on mobile data may not have been, I mean, if that particular issue has persisted or at least for 2 days, then obviously the usage rates will drop down to a drastic amount, especially for people who rely on mobile data for internet. Okay.
Now, can anyone tell me how I would find that out in the data? So I'm a data analyst. How can I find out that information to help illuminate?
So if the number of users is equal to the number of users affected, then it could be a network problem as an assumption.
There's an even
the
better
number
way
of
for
users
me to find out.
real. Come again?
There's an even better, easier way for me to find out if there is a network issue.
Just
The volume of customer calls that you get, complaints.
Our customer complaints are actually way down. Seems like we're having no issues in Brazil. Might be because of the network outage, but not totally sure.
Other apps of the Facebook family, are they also seeing any reduction in the usage?
Yeah, they can do that.
Yeah, all of them are. Yeah. And we are seeing the same usage decline in desktop. Or no, sorry, we're not seeing this. We're not seeing the same usage decline in desktop. So we're seeing it only in mobile experiences, both on mobile web and on the app.
Was there any new feature that was released?
Yeah, we launched a whole update yesterday, a huge update. It was Facebook 3.0. Yeah, we redesigned the newsfeed.
Okay, so could that be one of the reasons, like some bug fix in that could have caused this?
Yeah. Can you? What do you want me to do? You want me to do something? How should I deal with that? Any suggestions? So any suggestions on this point? So let's say it could be an app update issue, right? We updated the app yesterday. Huge issue. What can I look at? I can look at the data. I can probably find out something, right? What should I look for?
The number of bugs that
So
have
was it
bugs
historically?
Okay, so we're gonna have to mute, but I want Hassan to unmute and tell me what he said.
So I said I want to see so we can keep track of who has what version of the app, right? So we can actually take a look at people who haven't updated to the new version of the app and see how their performance has been affected as compared to like everyone else who's updated. And if they haven't been affected as much or at all, then we can it's a pretty safe bet that it's the app update that's causing the issue.
Great point, Hassan, and thanks for that. Yeah, that's exactly right. So we can actually find out that information pretty easily by looking at the 14.0 version versus the 13.0 version and seeing if there's a differential in the number of users on that. There is no change in differential. So unfortunately, it does not seem like the app update was the core source of the issue. Another tip to that is that the mobile web version is also not working. That means that the Chrome or Safari browser on my phone or whatever it is also experiencing that same decline. So it probably wouldn't be related to an app update. Could be related to a server-side update, but we're not totally sure. Now that we have this new method, right, we're slicing data by the version number. Can we go back to that network data one and come up with a similar approach there? What can we slice by to determine that data? Yeah, so Caleb, maybe can you just, Caleb or Tejas, one of you, can you just say like what it is, what you would do?
Yeah, this is Caleb. I'd slice by carrier. So ignore Brazil. If this were in the US, I'd check to see if people were using Verizon or T-Mobile or Sprint. I know that my friend had issues with with T-Mobile because they were going through their merger. So I would slice by carrier in that regard.
Cool. So Caleb, I'm going to look at the data right now, and it looks like there's a company called Brazil Telecom A, and all of their users are not on the platform as of today. What do you think happened?
Brazil Telecom A's network is experiencing some issue. So maybe it might be worth checking to see if we know anybody at the company or anybody close to the company who's able to report on anything close to the issue.
Got it. And so what should we do anything? Like, is this sort of a thing we can change that much? Is it a product issue? No. So yeah, So thanks everyone for the response. That's basically the answer is, yeah. So we got to the answer, right? A network went out in Brazil. It caused a bunch of users to not experience Facebook, but a lot of other users were also not able to experience it. We weren't able to really understand the news because it was like a hot news thing, and there's so much COVID stuff going on. We weren't able to see, like what the news cycles were saying, and yes, we could ask our peers at Google and Microsoft, but that takes a little bit of time, and we're not totally sure if they're willing to give us that information. And so the simple answer here is just slice by carrier to see if that's the issue. And so this example is more about demonstrating how to manipulate data, how to communicate with data scientists and data analysts, etc. And so a few principles here on how I would go about answering this question. And then I want to talk a little bit about what makes an effective answer here, because these are actual types of questions that get asked by companies like Facebook. So I would try to structure this problem by thinking about what takes a byte of information to get from the server to the client. So let's think about it. At the very most client level is a human being, like I'm the user of the experience. And so there could be a huge epidemic that broke out in Brazil, or a huge thing that happened that caused a bunch of users, specifically in Brazil, to not use Facebook. So maybe there was a scandal and people are trying to delete Facebook or things like that. So that's like at the most client level. And then you go up one level, it could be an iPhone issue or a Android issue, like a device issue. So maybe iPhone 20 just came out and it does not work with Facebook for some reason. It's causing a lot of bugs. So the device is having a problem. Pop up one layer, you have the operating system. Maybe the iOS or Android operating system just got updated and the new Jelly Bean or whatever came out and it doesn't work with any of the Facebook experiences. And that's causing the issue. Pop up another layer and we have the app. So maybe the app update, as I think it was Hassan pointed out, though, we can slice by it and see that the app wasn't a problem. But that is something that could have been an issue. We could have updated the app and caused a bunch of problems. And now we have the pop up another layer and you have the network. And so that was where the issue was. There could be a Wi-Fi issue or maybe an LTE or a carrier issue. So those are two potential issues, and that was where the issue was. But if you pop up even higher, you can go to the server side. There could be a server side bug, maybe a language bug that pushed Portuguese in Portugal to the Brazilian users, and that caused a lot of users to not use it anymore or something like that. And so that's something to check. And then maybe an even higher level, you could have a data center go out or something like that, like some kind of issue with the data that's coming into the experience. And so that would be how I would break down the problem in an ideal case. Really what this question is testing is not necessarily your ability to get to the right answer. It's testing your ability to think and reason through the problem. And it's okay to go through dead ends. It's okay to go through different things. It's important to actually just think about how would I go about this problem? And one of the things that I noticed the most in this that is ineffective, and ineffective in both as a PM and in an interview, is not specifying what actually you want to investigate. So it's fine to be I want to figure out if there are holidays going on in Brazil. So here's how I would go about finding out that information. I would go look at a database of holidays and see which ones are Brazilian and focused on Brazil. And then I would check the dates to see if they map to the specific dates that the issue was caused by. That is a much more cogent, clear answer than if you just jump into, are there any holidays going on? Especially in a workplace setting, would you actually ask that question to someone? Essentially what you're asking them to do is hey, go Google this for me. Or hey, I don't know, can I find this? How can I find this out? And so it especially applies to engineering work as well, just being able to spec out features and products as well. So just think thoughtfully about how you'd actually collect that information and communicating that clearly. That's just one tip that I would have for that process. But in general, I think what would really help shine in analytics execution questions is being able to really break down a problem and being able to say, here's how I'm going to go about it. Here's how I'm going about the problem. And this is the direction that I'm taking. This is my hypothesis. Cool. So I hope you all had fun with that. Product questions I want to get to. Eugen, I can message you or maybe email me if you want to get the answer to that. I'll have my email at the end of the slide. I know there are a lot of these nuanced questions, but I do want to get through a lot of the material. And we're already almost at the hour. So product questions. These are the most common types of questions. And the way I like to think about product questions is often in this structure. So I'm just going to kind of show that framework for you up front. We're not going to go through this framework religiously. And in fact, I do not recommend going through frameworks too focused. So there's a lot of circles and these frameworks online that you can use. They're fine. They're good for junior PM interviewing if you really don't know how to structure it. But what I would really recommend you do is tailoring your framework to the actual interview question. And we have a whole blog post about this, about how you should actually think about when I answer an interview, move beyond the framework, use the framework as maybe a basis, think about the users, think about their pain points, think about these things, but really move beyond that. One of the things that I want to highlight that's a little bigger on this page, that's why it's so important, every good product design answer has a tagline or has a clear point that you're trying to make. And we're going to go through an exercise right now together to see what that might look like. So now I want to talk about libraries. Okay, so we all know about libraries. Unfortunately, none of us probably have been to them in the past few months, or you haven't frequented them that much. So let's say we need to think about reinventing the library. We need to think about a new experience for a library. I want to come up with different ideas, and this is kind of like a brainstorming session, but I want to come up with different ideas of how we would innovate a library, and I want 10x ideas, or like ideas that are really brainstormy, really out there, and you can chat them in the chat below. But yeah, let's just think about some really cool different ideas of libraries. And I think what the point of this exercise is it tests your ability to come up with really out there ideas and think innovatively, and it's really important. So Jenny, actually moving everything to digital, that doesn't sound like a 10x idea to me. That sounds like it's already gonna happen yesterday, you know? So I want something more. VR, Max, that's cool, but like, what do you mean by that? I wanna know more. Okay, so we have an elevator that brings a book to you. I kind of like that. Like, that's interesting. Maybe we have a system that brings books to people based on maybe their data, that we scan their information beforehand, or we look at their Goodreads account. Books that are automatically turned into movies. Okay, Tejas, that's interesting. Maybe movies are the new format, right? Video is the new writing or whatever. And we need to actually turn all the books into movie experiences. That could be kind of an interesting thing. Speed dating with books. I love that. So maybe it's like a Tinder for books or something, and you're swiping through books, or you're trying out books a little bit, and you get to decide what works for you, and then you get personalized recommendations. Maybe it's like, wow, there's a lot of ideas now. A loud library, Caleb, that's an interesting one. I don't know what the idea exactly is there, but I mean, it's thought-provoking, I guess. A library plus a gym, that's interesting. Like maybe we can, and I think what that might speak to is like, the libraries are becoming maybe centers or hubs of cities. And maybe that is kind of the direction that you're going in there. So now we've brainstormed a lot of cool ideas. What are some principles here about what libraries are or what they should be? Do we have any like guiding principles or philosophies about libraries? Yeah, so Natasha, what do you mean about knowledge sharing? Okay, so maybe libraries entertainment I like, full of books, open source, this idea of open source, accessible to all, Zen. So I love these ideas, like community building, community, public forum. Let's see. Okay, diversity. So these are all principles of the library, right? Like things that are important to us in how we design the library. What does libraries
for social meet and to share knowledge, for socially meet and exchange of ideas, to come up with new ideas, build products.
Awesome, great ideas, yeah. And so, okay, great. So we have some ideas around like what libraries could be like, some principles, some directions. And you know, in a product design interview, we could pick one of those, pick a vision, pick some ideas, pick some pain points, really map it to the pain points and things like that, figure out what works. But one thing that I want to focus on that a lot of people have struggled with is how do I actually come up with these ideas? Like, it seems hard to actually come up with these and come up with good ones. So I want to present a strategy, a tactical strategy that will help you come up with those ideas if you feel like you're struggling to come up with them in interviews. And so the way it works is a big ideas list. So come into the interview having already done research on tech trends. Based on the earlier conversation, you should already be reading tech blogs and learning about all that kind of stuff, right? So you're already a master of tech trends. But do some specific research on trends that you think are really interesting or important. Right now, it might be remote work. Right now, it might be, you know, shared economy might not be such a popular one anymore, or based on that right now in this year, but it still could be your long-term view. You know, there could be other perspectives like maybe it should be context aware. Context awareness is the future. The ability to have computers understand the context of users and customize that experience to them is something that could be important. Maybe the assistant trend, you know, like the blank assistant. It's going to be the blank assistant. And maybe humane tech, like this trend in reducing the amount of usage that you use with technology could be something important. And so now we have all these great ideas. These are all cool trends that apply to an entirely different swath of products. Now, let's take these trends out and apply them to the library. So what do you get when you apply a sharing economy to a library? You get a decentralized book system that you can get books from your neighbors. So maybe you can pick up a book from your neighbor. You can have a like cloud library that kind of like has the different books and making books more accessible. If you apply context awareness, maybe it's that elevator idea or something, right? You walk into a library and immediately you get the book recommendations that you want. It's kind of like Amazon's online bookstore, but like in person, and you actually can see those books. X assistant, maybe you have an assistant that like helps. It's like a person you can chat with or something that can help you get books. It's like a librarian as an assistant that can pull information for you as you want to. You can store information for you from books and things like that. So it really is like your source of truth for the books that you read. And so just like for everyone, my recommendation is come up with your own big ideas list, come up with your own ideas that you think are impactful or important or meaningful, and then use those in interviews to come up with some of these ideas. Now, that's not exactly how product design interviews will go, and we have tons of YouTube videos about that, so hopefully if y'all aren't already subscribers, we're about to hit 10K subscribers. Would love for you to help us get there. But we have tons of product design videos that go through exactly this type of problem. But I wanted to focus on that specific idea. And again, if you have questions, post on that Slido link. Okay, I want to do one more interview while we have time, and this is more of a product strategy interview. These product strategy ones are coming up more frequently in interviews, and they're being asked more often. There's also product strategy roles that are kind of being created, so it's worth talking about. And this kind of touches on marketing too, so if you're interested in PMM as well, this might be relevant. So let's say I have some unfortunate news, or fortunate news, depending on how you look at it. All of you now own a company that has 1 million flip phones. They're the ones that are featured in this slide. You have 1 million of these, and you are a company, and you need to sell them in order to stay afloat for the next year. We need to come up with some marketing campaigns or some ideas on how to actually get this to our users. So I want to hear answers to two things. One, what user segments would you target? And two, given the user segment that you target, what would you actually change about the product? And let's assume that you cannot make it into a smartphone. So it has to stay kind of like what it is right now, but you can add embellishments or changes to it. So who would you market it to? So Benjamin, can you tell me about why you would market it to senior citizens?
Yeah, I mean, I have a personal example, like my grandfather used a flip phone. So, I mean, I think personally it's a lot easier for them to, functionally, they only really need to call people. Even text is probably not something that they need as much, but calling would be a more needed feature for people like them, in my opinion.
Okay, and can you think of any improvements you would make to the product experience if you were targeting that demographic?
Yeah, so I think the OS can be limited in that you really only show the most needed apps, and they're big, especially for those people who can't really see as well. So first thing that comes to mind is like call, text if there is those buttons on the phone, but I would think those two are really the most needed apps.
Awesome. Cool. Yeah, great ideas. We could have grip on the phone. You could make the buttons bigger, things like that. Renee, I think you had an idea. Can you tell us what your idea was?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah. So my idea was to market it to celebrities and politicians. So the idea that I had behind it was that most of these people actually use a lot of burner phones because they might not want to have all the information spread out on the cloud and everything. So them being able to use these type of phones would actually help them kind of get away from the system.
Awesome, cool. Yeah, if anyone has ever seen Better Call Saul, I think he does that in an episode as well, where, these flip phones, you can sell them as burner phones, maybe they're like extra special. You can actually charge a premium on them because they're burner phones. You actually can't, track them or whatever. So that's a cool idea. I think I saw Sana had an idea as well. Could I hear from you too? Sana Naz?
Yeah, I said I think we should target the backpackers and campers because they don't want to have, they kind of are traveling, they want to travel light, and they probably don't want to have like a lot of apps on their phone, and they kind of want to be remote and communicate less.
Awesome. So Sana, what would you change about the phone?
I would probably make it more hardy. So since they'll be, camping, so water resistant, maybe have better covers.
Awesome. Great ideas. We can maybe make it camouflage colored or something like that, or something like that. Okay, one more. Nihal, what's your idea?
Yeah, so my idea was like to parents who want to buy their first phone for kids, because like there's a huge thing, like parents are very scared about accessing social media and all of those apps. And the thing is that like they don't want their kids to be able to go to Facebook or any type of social media. So it would be more of like marketing this type of product as like, this is the best first phone for your kid type of a thing, and target that demographic, that this is how like they can stay connected to you, so you can call them and do all of those types of tasks while also, making sure that they're not going on social media and, disrupting their youth type of a thing.
Awesome. And how would you customize that product to that user segment?
then you basically make it more kiddish in the sense of put some cartoons on it, like make sure that it looks like what a first kid's phone would look like for a 12-year-old, 11-year-old, however young, like they want to give the phone to. And then I would say that also like make sure that it's like safe, like in general, like it just has call functions and stuff like that. Just make sure that it's like targeted to the parents specifically.
Great. Yeah, customizability, colors, stickers, Avengers icons, things like that might be cool stuff to include. Yeah, awesome. Okay, so I want to move on to talk a little bit about other types of questions and things like that, so that we leave some room for Q&A. Let me just go back. Actually, there's one slide that I just want to mention that's important. This is a user funnel. If people don't know what this is, it's something that's really important and powerful and helpful in answering questions with analytics questions. And analytics questions, I know we covered the execution style, but we didn't really cover the analytics type. And so just something for you to know. And then another framework that I like that actually is really helpful is the game framework. When you think about answering a question like this one of like, okay, you're the PM of YouTube's analytics, what would you pick and why? I would think about the goals. Then I think about the actions that support those goals, and then the metrics that measure those actions. And there's more detail on the website. Like it's a little hard to cover all of these things, but hopefully the purpose of this presentation is to provide at least an overview of the entire PM interview and the experience and the types of questions you would get. That's why I go back to this one. Okay, so the most common question is, what's your favorite product and why? And I think like the follow-up question is often like, what would you change? There are a lot of variants to this, like, oh, maybe what's your favorite hardware product, or what's your least favorite product, and things like that. And for each person, this is an independent answer. The main thing that I want you to get away with for this question is to have an arguable thesis about your favorite product. And so the thing that I see most often is that someone says, my favorite product is Gmail because it helps me organize my emails. Okay, that's great. I love that. I love that about Gmail too. But that has not told me anything interesting or new. This is an opportunity for you to share more about yourself, to share more about your product insight, your product thinking, and to share more about like, who you are and things like that. And so, yes, you can totally pick Gmail. You could totally pick a common product, no problem. But what I would not recommend is picking a product and not having an interesting or nuanced thesis about it. And one way to make your thesis nuanced and interesting is to make it arguable, to make it something that someone could deny or someone could disagree with. And so with the Gmail case, that's not really an arguable thesis, right? But if I said, the reason that Slack, I love Slack and why I think Slack is so successful is the usage of emojis. I think that's the main reason that Slack has become so successful. That's arguable. A lot of you might disagree with that, right? That might not be so compelling. But if I can justify that and bring in examples that support that, I have now shown something that's actually very nuanced about how I think about products and very nuanced about how I think about like the entire product management field, or how I think about products, and maybe it bleed into my principles about whenever I build a product, delight is a really important principle for me. That's why I focus so much on delight as a product manager, et cetera, et cetera. And that highlights something about you, that shows something to the interviewer. So for each of you, my exercise or my homework for you is to go and think about something, think about a product that you like, and think about why you like it and why other people would disagree with that, and how you would argue that that is an actually great product and a great feature. And I think it's a great exercise in general, honestly. And one thing you could do if you really want to take it to the next level is write a blog post about it and talk about why you think that that is the way it is. And there are tons of blog posts like that a lot of people publish on strategy or product strategy documents. And if you're having trouble kind of showcasing that or building that up, I would do research on it, do research on the product, read about it, and things like that. That might help you a little bit. I want to talk a little bit about some techniques that I find to be very helpful in all PM interviews that I just always recommend. One, always talk about trade-offs. It makes you sound smarter and it anticipates interviewer concerns. So for example, if I answer a question and I say, these are the things that I didn't consider, or these are the things I'd be most concerned about with this type of product, I'm already anticipating issues that the interviewer has, and I show that I can think forward a few steps. Always start off an interview, just get into the habit of asking a question first. It just is always better. It shows that you're thinking about the problem. Interviewers are always looking for that to see if you can actually understand the problem, as opposed to just like, understanding, just thinking that you understood the problem. Backtrack with grace. So an example of that would be, I'm about to make point one in my interview. And point one is that I think that all cars should be driverless. But actually, as I think about it more, I don't know if I'd say all cars. And so let me adjust that point one to be that the majority of cars should be driverless by this time. So that's just like me putting on my interviewer hat and doing a little example, interviewee hat, but be able to make mistakes and be comfortable with that in an interview and be confident in how you adjust your answer. The biggest mistake I see often is someone like comes in and they say something and they think they lost the interview and they think it's over and then they lose all the confidence. You never lose the interview, and making mistakes is a part of the interview process. And I know that interviews can be really emotional and really tough, and rejection is a really tough feeling to just feel. And so I also want to honor that, and just like, I know it's really stressful and hard and there's a lot of anxiety. But it's really true that like portraying confidence can help you do a lot better in interviews. And so power poses or whatever it does to help you feel more confident in an interview can be really effective. Two other things, one, active and passive pings. So in interviews, the most common mistake, the number one mistake, can anyone guess what it is? You can just chat the answer below. What's like the most common thing that people do that is a bad thing to do in PM interviews? Immediately, Irene got it. It's talking, just constantly talking. And just like continue to say things, and because you're nervous or maybe you're not sure what to do. And it's tempting, I get it. So the way that I would deal with this, if I were you, is do passive and active check-ins. There's two ways to do that. One, I'm going to answer the next point. Let me know if you have any issues with how I'm going about this problem. So what I've done is I've given an opportunity for the interviewer to interrupt me if I'm going in the wrong direction. That's a passive ping. Active ping would be something more like, I'm going on to step 2. Does everything I said sound good to you? Do you have any questions about anything I've covered? Put these in your interview randomly throughout the interview, just to make sure that your interviewer is paying attention, because sometimes interviewers have jobs and they get distracted also. So it's helpful to make sure that they're paying attention to you. It's also a good way to make sure that you're not rambling. And it's also a good way to just make sure that you're not going in a wrong direction and you understood the interviewer. Interviewing is more like a dance. It's not a one-way thing. It's not answering a question. And so the more that you can interact with the interviewer, the better. And that's one thing that the interviewers on YouTube and a lot of these guides online don't capture, is the nuances of really working with the interviewer. That's something that we're always trying to capture a little bit more in our YouTube videos too. And last thing, just always use a whiteboard. Zoom has a whiteboard feature. You can just write on a pad and just show it to the camera if you really need to. Visuals help so much, even just spatially putting things in air, being like, yeah, on one hand there's this thing, and on the other hand there's this thing. It actually allows you to refer to those things more easily. You can be like, oh yeah, that thing earlier, I think it is a problem actually because X, Y, Z. Okay, cool. So we talked a lot about interviews, everything like that. I want to talk a little bit about Exponent, if it's all right, to just share a little bit about how you can get more information, more resources to help you, because I know I wasn't able to cover everything for a PM interview, but hopefully this is helpful thus far. So product management is tough. We have a whole product management interview prep course that you can look at online. It's at tryexponent.com, and it has over 60 or 70 lessons now on product management. We also have courses on TPM, PMM, data science, software engineering, and we launched a PM skill development course if you're looking to develop more skills in product management. And so I'd recommend that you check that out if you want a little bit more skills, or if maybe you're starting an internship, you can jump into that, and it tells you like how to run an A/B test or how to think about answering things, and it actually shows like a real video example of a user research session and things like that. Let me just click the next slide. We also have a blog that's totally free. Check it out at blog.tryexponent.com. We publish like 5 articles every week or something now, like about all the different fields and how to ace interviews. Would love feedback. If you're interested in guest blog posting or getting on our blog as well, or helping us spread the word, let us know. And then we have a YouTube channel. At the time of this screenshot, which is actually only like 3 months ago or something, it was about 4K subscribers. We're now at about 10K subscribers. And so would love your help in growing that YouTube channel as well. And I saw a lot of people have already seen it on YouTube as well. So thanks to those of you who watch it. We always love the likes and the comments, and I try to respond to every comment on every video. If you want even more prep, we have one-on-one coaching with people. We match you up based on the company that you're interviewing with. So if you're interviewing for a Google role, we match you with a Google coach. If you're interviewing for a Facebook role, we match you with a Facebook coach. That's another way that you can get help with your interviews. We also launched a new interview question database. This is actually free right now for COVID-19. We actually launched this completely free. So if you go to tryexponent.com/questions, you actually see an entire database of interview questions that you can filter by company, by type of question, and by the role that you're interviewing for. And you can see questions. You can actually comment on those questions to answer them, and we'll give you feedback. We'll come in and we'll actually comment on your answers and give you feedback on that answer. And so will the community. So if you're looking to get more prep, this is an excellent way to get more practice, which is actually test out the interview questions that you're interviewing for and write up full answers for them. And so, yeah, like this is something you can check out right now, tryexponent.com/questions. And yeah, thanks for Caro for posting it so that I don't have to. And yeah, and would love to see a shout if you post in it, like you can ping me about it and I can personally try to respond to it or make sure someone responds to it. And yeah, we are working on a video version of that. Thanks to Ishan for the great product suggestion. It's great having all these product people. We also are publishing this Friday company interview guides, and we're starting with Google, where it has a detailed list of all the things you need to know to interview for companies like Google. It has details about the interview process, example questions, how they make hiring decisions, whether or not you need to know technical interview questions, tips and tricks, and more. And so we're launching that this Friday as well as next week. And so just make sure that you're on our listserv. You can just sign in on our homepage to get notified when we actually do that. And that'll be really exciting, I think. I would love your feedback on that as well. And if you didn't have enough of that, we are also launching a peer-to-peer mock interview tool if you need even more practice. This is in current beta. It's on a wait list. If you want to get access, just email me because we're actually keeping it pretty tight. We have a lot of users on it. But it's basically a tool that helps you match up for mock interviews. It's kind of like Preamp for product management. And basically you join a session at 8 p.m. every day and you will get matched with a practice partner and you can do practice interview questions. Again, my tip to you, whether you use Exponent or a different tool, is get as much practice as you possibly can, because practice is the way that you'll actually get comfortable and show off that confidence in the interview. So a lot of it is about confidence building and things like that, but also getting familiar and learning from your peers. And it's a great way to meet other people. My email will be at the end of Ishan, but it's my first name at tryexponent.com, Steven@tryexponent.com. Yeah, so before I close, I just want to say good luck to all of you for your interviews. I know it's a really hard process. I'm here to help. A lot of people are here to help. Product Buds, remote students, like all of these resources are available to you. I would say that when I learned from my personal journey, when I was interviewing for product roles, I had no resources. I was very unsure. I had just switched from a chemical engineering major for the first 2 years of college into computer science major in junior fall. And I felt so over my head. Everyone was using words that I'd never heard about before. And I felt really like confused. And I feel really lucky and fortunate that I was able to get the role that I got with Exponent. And so I just really want to empathize with how I know it's really confusing and unclear, and we're trying our best to try to make that process clearer. And so here's just more information for contacting me or connecting with me. We have a special discount for remote students that you can use via that link. And I think remote students listserv already sent out a link to that as well. But if you want to get it, it's the 20% off link for Exponent. And we also have a Twitter and Facebook that you can follow. I thought my email would be here, but it's not. So it's Steven, my first name, @tryexponent.com. And so you can just, yeah, someone maybe can post. Yeah, thanks everyone for posting for me in the chat. Awesome. Well, I'm done with the presentation, and I know I want to answer all of your questions because they're really important. So please let me know if there's anything else. Otherwise, I'm going to switch to answer questions. Again, there's a Slido link if you want to post and upvote different questions. So let me just quickly switch here over to here. Okay. So hopefully everyone can see my screen. Hopefully everyone got all the links and stuff that they need. Okay, so let's get into it. If you're new to PM, don't have any past experience that is specifically PM, how do you best secure an interview or reach out to a recruiter? Yeah, it's tough. So generally, if you're in, I think this answer depends if you're a student or not. If you're a student, I'd recommend taking courses. I'd recommend joining like clubs that are relevant, doing leadership positions. I'd recommend the specifically project classes where you produce a project by the end of it. If you're not a student right now, what I'd recommend is building products, building your personal website, reading tech blogs, reading tech journals, things like that, and et cetera, to build that experience. And then the way I think about it is like, really, it's a networking thing. Like, it's like connecting with recruiters, cold emailing LinkedIn people, reaching out to people, asking your friends for referrals at different companies, things like that. But I would say that, like, at the end of the day, what it really comes down to is like hustle and grit and determination in getting that offer. You can definitely go for it and move towards it. There's also another strategy, which is you can go into tech in a different role and then transition to PM later. And so it really depends on where you are, what your experience is. It's hard for me to give blanket advice on that. But there's certainly a lot of different paths to product management that you can explore. Okay, is coding your own website to showcase your projects and experiences a good way to brand yourself for PM roles? Would it set you apart? Certainly a good way to do it. I think what I would prioritize is not necessarily the coding of the website, but the projects that you're building. So I would prioritize building projects that are nuanced, that are interesting, that showcase your ideas. Maybe they are like product opinions or something like that, like a slide deck or something. Things like that could be helpful for sure. But I would say more than most things, like I would focus on, if you're a student, I'd focus on your education stuff, making sure that shines and taking technical classes and doing projects, like doing actual software engineering projects or working with software engineers. Yeah, sorry, a question about the promo code. I think the promo code lasts for like a month or so. So if that helps answer the question. Okay, so can you major in sociology and psychology and still pursue PM? Yes, I guess my question is like, why not major in a more technical field? Like what the difference is there? I think doing the more technical you can be and the more technical you can take on activities and projects and things like that, the better. So if you're a sociology, psychology major, go to hackathons, participate in those, like be in the CS club, at least at your college, things like that, so that you can actually like get those experiences and skill sets and take those classes. You can certainly do it, it's certainly possible. It's less conventional of a path, yeah. And it just might require like hustling more, interviewing at startups more, things like that, or starting in a different role. Okay, how can you network with PMs at your current company during your internship in a non-PM role? So if you're a SWE or a technical project manager, yeah, we have a whole blog post on this. Like basically what I'd recommend is telling your manager that your goal is to be in product. And then your manager can start being your ally to help you get into those roles, or find a PM mentor in the company who can help you out, who can help guide you to getting those roles. Usually it starts with 20% projects where you start kind of like working with PMs, you start working on a product-oriented project, and then you move closer into some of those things. How to approach jobs, internships where you don't have a big brand name on your resume. It really does seem to matter. So big brands are helpful for sure, but what I would actually focus on if I were you, Anonymous, is that you should actually do like jobs and internships that are important to you, that you care about, that you're passionate about, and it will show in those interviews that you care about them. So I would focus more on that as opposed to focusing on getting the big brand names. And you can showcase through that so many ways. Like if you're a travel blogger, maybe you care a lot about travel products and that's why you're interviewing for Kayak or for whatever company you're interviewing for, things like that. And so I would recommend focusing on things like that as opposed to focusing on getting big brand names. In general, again, networking, we could do a whole separate session on how to get interviews, but I focus the session more on how to succeed in the interviews. And so that's a whole separate thing that we could talk about, but there's a lot of tips online about it. Cold email, LinkedIn, all those kinds of things, like getting your name out there, building experience on your resume. And yeah, just like I would widen your top of funnel, like apply for a lot of jobs, especially in this job market. It's really tough. So I'd apply for more jobs than you would think to, and just see what you get, see what comes in, and see how you can start navigating that space better. How do non-technical PMs build rapport with engineers? Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. I think one way to build rapport with engineers is to build rapport with any other human being, which is talk to them, like get lunch with them, like, you know, like they're humans, they have goals, they have priorities, things like that. Like befriend some of the engineers on your team, like learn more about them, be interested in them, things like that. And then I would say like also just advocate for their goals and needs. Like I would go to the engineers on your team or the tech lead and say, hey, like I am interested in, you know, learning more about engineering and becoming a better engineer, would love to help support some of your projects, maybe help resource things for them or help unblock them from things that are really annoying. One thing that I love doing when I'm a first PM on a team is join the team and be like, okay, what is the smallest thing I can do that will help the engineers be more effective or productive? And usually it's something like data entry or something really simple or silly, but it actually really helps. And it helps drive that process a lot better. So I would focus on that. Okay, I'm a TPM intern. I'm struggling with creating fleshed out user stories and prioritizing tasks because I have limited technical knowledge. How do I approach this? So yeah, what I would recommend is getting a mentor in the company. That would be one recommendation first, who can help you with that. Ask someone for advice or for how to accomplish that. I would get a mentor outside of the company, someone you respect or you know, maybe even a group of people that you can talk to that will help you with this. I would also recommend developing your technical knowledge by doing projects or things like that, doing courses online. There are a lot of courses online. Again, we have a PM skills course that talks about A/B testing, user research, things like that. That might be one place to start. But there's also a ton of Udemy courses, like Coursera courses, YouTube videos that you can look at. And yeah, I would recommend starting there. I would also recommend, like, for you, Anonymous, whoever it is that's a TPM intern, like, write down what it is you feel like you don't know. So like, what is it that you feel like is inhibiting you? And then based on those pieces of information, create a curriculum for yourself about what you need to learn in order to succeed at your job. And it helps sometimes to just take a pause and like write down exactly what it is you need to learn and what your learning goals are, and then communicate those outward to your manager or to your team or to your mentors and things like that. The most common thing, like whenever someone joins the Exponent team as like a software engineer, or we had a bunch of interns join us recently. Like, I asked them, what are your learning goals? Like, what can we do to help you grow in your career? And I think that's one of the most important things to do, is to actually think about, like, what are your career goals, and communicating them and thinking about them. So that's really helpful. Agrita, how to move on when you realize that you've shipped a failed product. Please tell, how do you define a failed product and when you decide to move on? Sorry, I'm going to take a quick sip of water because I'm trying to speed through these really quickly. So the way I would think about this, a failed product is not a failed learning. And so the way I think about it is, if you've shipped a failed product, you have learned something, right? You have learned something that can educate and help other people. And that is not a failure. That is really useful. So I'd recommend writing a blog post. Why did it fail? Like, can you understand what failed about it? What was the issue there? And then based on that, you can actually really have some great insights. And that actually might stand out in an interview. Be like, I shipped something, it failed, but here's my analysis on why it failed. Here's my learning. Here's how it applies to my product management skill set and the companies that I interview with. I think that would be really helpful. How can a PM tackle the fact that their team doesn't respect them? Do you have any tips on influencing and leading? Yeah, this one, I would say, my approach here for you, Anonymous, how I'd approach this problem, and for how I think you should approach this with the team, is focusing on active listening. So just really listen to your team and understand why you think they don't respect you, or like what it is about the interaction that's not working for you. And the way that really starts is actively listening. Like, you can talk to them like, hey, I'd love to get feedback. How can I be better? What I'm hearing is that I'm not effective at talking through technical problems. That's really helpful to know. Like, do you have any recommendations on how I can get better on that? And coming in with kind of like a listening ear and a thoughtful approach, I think that is a really good way to go about it. And that would be the question I'd ask you too, is like, why do you feel like you're not being respected? It's a really hard situation to be in also. So I just want to emphasize, I want to empathize with that. Like, that is hard. And so, yeah, I would want to tease that out with you and figure out what is going on there. Maybe like worth a coaching session around that, probably. We got one more that popped up, which is, how do you come up with a good tagline for a product design / sense question? Yeah, I would think about it. There's this book that I recommend. It's called Made to Stick by Chip and Dan Heath. Start there. That might be a good place to read, just to understand why ideas are sticky and what makes them sticky. And you can leverage some of those principles and come up with a tagline. So that would be my homework to you, Anonymous, is to read that book. It's, again, it's called Made to Stick. So Made to Stick. Cool. And then how can a PM tackle the fact that their team doesn't respect them? Do you have any tips on influencing and leading? Oh, sorry, I just read that. Is there a 1-month study plan or guide to help give students a plan of action for interviewing prep? Yeah, I would say the way I would think about it is like take a curriculum. It doesn't have to be Exponent's course, but it can be someone's course. Go look at it, figure out how much time you can commit to it, and then just portion out. Like, this is my goal every week. If you look up a study plan online, it's not going to be as effective because it's tailored to someone else and it doesn't assume the number of hours that you're working on it per week. So what I'd recommend is really creating that yourself, but using a curriculum that already exists to create that plan. Cool. What student orgs, activities, courses can we engage in college to better prep for career and technical product management? Computer science classes where you make products. Student orgs like the computer science club. A lot of clubs have like ACM, like club might be a place to start, or like women in computer science clubs is another one. Like there are common clubs that exist in campuses that I've seen. There's also like product clubs. You could start a product club at your school. Like, why not? You know, if you're passionate about that and you have a lot of people that are interested in that. And then hackathons, I would say, are really impactful, or idea-a-thons would be helpful. Yeah, entrepreneurship clubs are great too. It's a great suggestion, Rajavi. Thanks for posting that. If you're working with clients and are in a non-technical role / consultant, how would you move into PM at your company? If you're working with the clients in a non-technical role, I would say some of the similar advice to what I recommended earlier about talking to your manager, talking to other people on your team. I think I kind of answered this already. Will there be all right, let's do one last question because I know I'm running out of time. And yeah, I think I wanted to get to everyone's questions and love all the posts as well for people in the chat. So like, will there typically be a coding or technical portion to the interviews? Here, let me put this back up just so people can get it if they want also. So for technical questions, the way I think about this is, so Google for sure asks technical questions. So if you're interviewing for Google, be aware of that. If you're not interviewing for Google or you're not sure, I would ask the recruiter, do you ask a coding or technical question? And the recruiter will usually tell you. So that's really helpful. And then if you are still not sure after the recruiter tells you, the guess is that it probably doesn't ask a coding question. Most startups or small stage companies don't do it. But I would recommend briefing yourself on technical knowledge. So can you answer the question, what happens to a URL when you type it in your browser? And if you can't answer that question or you don't know, look it up, or there's a lesson in our course that describes that, for example. But yeah, I would recommend like learning a little bit about system design, learning a little bit about software engineering, reviewing some of the cracking the coding interview stuff just to get a sense of it before you jump too hard into a interview where you might be asked technically related concepts, basically.